Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin, or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there's so much more in there? You just have no clue how to get it out? Or maybe you want to know the Bible better, and you're looking for any resource to help. Then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible. We're sisters. I'm Veronica.
I'm Erica.
And we love to study the Bible, and we love to help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. So, we talked about Deborah last week. And as I look in my Bible this week, it does say Gideon.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to take a step out and go, is Gideon the judge we're looking at this week?
Yeah. Very good.
All
yes,
right.
Gideon is the judge.
Because he shows up again in chapter 7.
Yes.
So truthfully, last week we did Deborah, because she was chapters 4 and 5. We did them together. This week, chapter 6 and 7 both deal with Gideon. But we're only covering chapter 6 this week.
Because chapter 5 reiterates.
Okay.
It's like the poetic way to look at chapter 4.
Okay.
This one, 6 and 7, are two different events.
Continuing a story.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're only going to do chapter 6.
Okay.
Today.
All right, Erin. Tell us about Gideon.
All right. So we're still working our way down that spiral.
Yep.
And now we're on the next cycle. Again, after peace, prosperity, you would think people would learn, but we don't. Legitimately, people, we must learn the hard way. And so Israel turns their back on God, does evil, so God, again, disciplines. And at this point, the thought struck me, where are the priests? They're supposed to fill Israel and teach people how to live. Where's the tribe of Levi? Well, we'll keep that. We'll let that question hang for a bit, and we'll keep going. Now, in this chapter, we're beginning to realize things are upside down. Israel was meant to fill the land, be a blessing to others and the land, right?
Which, if you study Leviticus,
you would know that.
You would know that.
Right. What we learn in this chapter is that the Midianites and Amalekites are filling the land, but they're not a blessing. They invade it like a swarm of locusts. And when they leave it, it's been ravaged and torn apart and destroyed. What they think would happen is the Midianites and the group would wait till Israel planted. As harvest time was getting closer, then they would come in, settle in an area, terrorize the locals, grab all the food, everything they wanted, and then they'd leave.
Wow.
And the people would be left with nothing. I mean, that would be devastating. So hard to, there's like everything you worked for the year, your bank account's gone. What do you do? So, obviously, they cry out to God, and God sends a prophet. And Veronica, what's our first thought?
Deborah was a prophet.
Deborah was a prophet. This is great.
She had good news.
Right.
She brought the judge.
She brought the judge. This prophet simply rebukes Israel and then walks away. And I think this does double duty. First of all, in case we, the reader, are missing it, the narrator wants us to be very clear. God is not simply acting out of anger. Israel is wrong. God is responding to Israel's sin. This is discipline. Second, Israel. Apparently, you're really thick-headed, and you need to know ignorance isn't bliss. It's like you have no ignorance here. You know exactly why this is happening.
You have no excuse.
You have no excuse. Thank you. Israel doesn't respond. It's almost like this stalemate. They're not repenting. They're not getting rid of the idols. They're kind of like, yeah, we know. So what do you do?
Yeah.
It's in this tension that we meet Gideon. And our first view of Gideon is he's hiding in a wine press. Apparently, now I've seen wine presses with little walls. Apparently this has big walls that can cover a person. And
so it's above ground.
It's above ground.
Okay.
And he's threshing wheat
Okay.
to hide from the Midianites so they don't come and take it. Now, through this whole conversation, I want you to picture Gideon as working the whole time, like barely even glancing up. And he's first called Mighty Warrior, which is so ironic because he's hiding in a wine press. So Mighty Warrior
With
is
his food.
With his food. It's not the first thought that comes to mind. But Gideon doesn't even act shocked. that all of a sudden somebody's in this wine press with him. I think the man's a little dense or focused because it's like this angel, this messenger of the Lord shows up. Gideon, mighty warrior, the Lord is with you. And Gideon's like, yeah, right. If God is with us, why am I hiding in a wine press? Mighty warrior, whatever. And so the messenger's like, fine, go out, fight the Midianites. You get this feeling like Gideon just kind of rolls his eyes and laughs, kind of this humorless laugh, like, sure, I'll fight Midian. I'm a nobody. My family's a nobody. Who the heck are you? What are you thinking? And I think this is when the angel of the Lord like walks over to Gideon, puts his hand on Gideon, makes him stop working. Gideon finally looks up and he's like, oh, who are you? Where did you come from? How did you get in here? What's going on? Gideon's terrified, doesn't know what to do. So he runs out to get what he thinks will be good for a sacrifice, just in case this is a deity or an angel or something, because I'm not sure I'm going to get appropriate food. But Gideon's not even sure what to get. So he just pulls things that he thinks works, and then he runs back. But he doesn't even know what to do with it. Like he's been taught apparently not much from Torah. He doesn't even know what to do with this. And so the angel has to tell him, Gideon, do this, set it down, I'll touch it. The fire consumes the food. The angel of the Lord is gone. And Gideon's terrified. He's like, oh my word, I had no clue. And I was sarcastic, like, I don't know who this man was. I'm about to die. And God has to reassure Gideon, like, Gideon, I didn't kill you yet, did I? I have plans for you. Get up, go fight Midian. Well, later that night, Gideon again is at home. And God speaks to him. Okay, Gideon, I want you to fight, but we need to deal with the idol in your home first. You need to deal with the root of the sin, not just the consequences of the sin. Get rid of the town idol. We learn a couple things in this story because number one, Gideon goes with 10 servants, his own personal servants. Gideon's dad is not a nobody. If your son can have his own servants, you've got wealth. A lot of money.
And he doesn't just have one servant.
Right. 10. And he goes at night. They're a coward. Gideon's still a coward. He goes with his gang with him in the middle of night so nobody sees him. And third, Gideon's family sponsors the local cult. Gideon's family owns this idol and pays for its upkeep and keeps it going. So the idolatry is coming from Gideon's own family. So Gideon topples the idol. The next morning, the townspeople get up. It's not a secret, small town. Everybody finds out eventually, and they're hot. They want to kill Gideon. Now, the irony here is obvious because you're going, if this idol cannot even defend itself against one man,
right?
Or 11, how is this idol going to defend a town against an army? Like, that's just ridiculous. And second, I think it's Leviticus, it says, if a man brings an idol, you're to kill the man because we don't want idolatry. Well, they now want to kill the man who's getting rid of the idol. So like everything's getting flipped upside down.
Which fits with Gideon knew nothing about how to sacrifice. Then clearly they don't even know about idol worship and how repulsive it is to God.
Right. There's a lot they don't know. We're learning. But
which goes then, where did all this why do you think they keep falling into dysfunction and chaos and disobedience?
Nobody's teaching.
No, it's not getting passed on.
Right. But the father of Gideon stands up and he's interesting. I don't know what to do with him because his point is, if the idol's real, he'll punish my son. The rest of you don't have to. So on the one hand, again, we see his authority. He can speak against the entire town. It's his idol. So he's the one that should be leading the charge. And he says, don't let the idol defend itself.
Gideon's saying we're a nobody family.
Right.
Not true.
Not true. Like we're going, do we need to go back to that wine press moment and go, wait a minute, Gideon, did anything you say there, was any of that true? But second, the father's response is interesting because he seems to not believe in the idol himself. And I honestly don't know, Veronica, if he's like a businessman and I just believe in profit. So I'll just sponsor whatever will bring me the most money. Or if he has his own doubts about the idol and he wants to see maybe this idol is fake and it is the God of Israel we need to be turning to. Yeah, I don't know. And the text doesn't tell us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an interesting little quandary. At this point, also, we're introduced to the second name for Gideon, Jerubbaal, which means Baal contends.
Okay.
And we need to keep the second name in mind because we're going to, as we go through the story, begin to see two different sides to Gideon. Othniel, Ehud were pretty much one-dimensional, but Gideon becomes more complex. He has two different sides, and the name the narrator uses will show you what side he's trying to bring out. But we'll hit that later.
But that fits with a lot of the reading. When you see, Ruth the Moabitess, you have that where the narrator's trying to remind you of the backstory. If you remember the Moabites, you're going to think all the way back to Genesis 19, where they came from. Even in Matthew 1, where it says Uriah's wife, it doesn't give her name. All of that is to remind you of the backstory. So when you see people's names, it's not just their label, it's their backstory, their character,
their history.
There's so much more. So we have to pay attention to the names that are specifically being used.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good point. All right. Now, all these mouse nations, we talked about cat and mouse. So these are all mouse nations. They're all coming together. And God's Spirit fills Gideon. And Gideon has no trouble calling together all these different tribes to come fight for Israel. So thousands of men come to fight. And we're expecting, like the other judges.
So more than just the Israelites are coming.
Well, it's the Israelites are coming to fight for Gideon against the Amalekites and Midianites.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it's different tribes. It's not just one tribe.
Okay.
So we're expecting a massive battle, and then God will give Israel the victory and it's all over. But even with this massive army behind him, even with the Spirit of God on him, Gideon is still a coward. He has no trust in the God of Israel. I mean, at least Barak was willing to go to battle at this point. He had a security blanket, but he was willing to go. Gideon's still unsure. Is this God going to be faithful, or maybe he'll set things up and then leave me high and dry? He does not know this God at all. So Gideon does the fleece test. And I'm just going to put this right out there. This is not something to emulate.
Okay.
I've heard well-meaning Christians go, I didn't know what to do, so I did the fleece test. And I get where people are coming from because there's often, I don't know what to do.
And I want some kind of assurance. God, I'm hearing from you.
Right.
And I guess that's it. We can at least go, God, we're not sure we directly heard from you.
Gideon can't say that.
Right.
I mean, Gideon has had numerous interactions with this God. He's got this massive army behind him. His father stuck up for him. I mean, there's been so many things in Gideon's life that
have led to
this point. It's still not enough. And it's not that Gideon doesn't know what to do. Gideon's just afraid to do it. That's the fleece test. When you know what God has called you to do, you're just too afraid to obey. This is wrong. So Gideon does his fleece test. And he doesn't even keep his own promises because after saying, I won't ask again, he then does ask again. When all is said and done at this point, God will tell Gideon, I'm with you. I will be with you 5 times before Gideon finally goes to battle. This does not speak highly of Gideon. And we're beginning to see that God is more interested in saving Israel than Israel is in being saved. I mean, at this point, you get the feeling that if God finally went like, Gideon, never mind. It's not worth it. I'm done. You're not interested. Gideon would walk away. But people are starving. People are dying. This is not just one man's life on the line. This is
the nation's.
The nation's life is on the line. Gideon, isn't that worth a little sacrifice? Maybe a little I'm not sure of the outcome, but I'm going to do it because if I win, everybody will be helped.
Right. Well, but that says, Gideon, you're only thinking of yourself.
Yes.
Gideon, you're focused only on your comfort and your needs, not the needs of those around you. Because think about it. If God were to come and say, hey, look, this whole people group is suffering and I've picked you to help them.
Yeah.
How many of us would go, well, I'm really content right now? I mean, that could selfishly be oh, I wish you would have picked somebody else. But on the other hand, at some point, your compassion for those hurting,
you would hope would kick in.
yes, I get going, oh, I'm not really thrilled with this.
Right.
But I hear and see what's going on and I want to help.
Right. Yeah, I think one good thing with Gideon, I don't know if he has a lot of compassion. He seems very cowardly and self-centered, but he does still seem to be moving forward.
Okay.
And I think that's why God responds and answers his tests.
Oh, yeah.
Because he at least is moving forward. He's not running with obedience, but I think he's at least not standing still.
Okay.
And so one thought that struck me when I was working through this was, it's not that fear is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that verse, perfect love casts out fear. But I think when fear stops you from obedience, that's when it's a sin. It's okay to be afraid, or it's okay to feel, it's normal to feel anxiety and uncertainty. And Gideon's family was in a very hard spot. We will learn later on, Gideon may have had some good reasons for his anxiety. But you can't let that stop you from obedience. And I think that's when God finally goes, okay, now your fear is a sin and I will discipline you. And I think at least in Gideon's defense, for all the negative we're seeing with him, a positive is he is apparently still moving forward. He
enough. To get,
yes.
Okay. Enough that God's not completely done.
Yes, he did destroy the idol. He apparently is at least working with the army to get things set up. It's not an obstinate.
But that makes me think of Moses, because when God came to Moses at the burning bush, Moses gave what we call excuses. Well, I'm not a good speaker. Well, I'm not. How are they going to know? God never got mad.
Right.
Until Moses basically went, I don't want to do it.
Right.
Just send, when Moses finally went, just send somebody else.
Right.
That's when God went, no, and brought in a different tone.
Right. You will do it. And now I will use someone to help you. And I think that's something that we need to appreciate about God, his mercy.
Yes.
Like his mercy for Gideon, he's very patient with Gideon, very patient. And I think when we are afraid or anxious and uncertain, we can go to God with that and say, I don't know what to do. I am worried. I still don't think the fleece test is the appropriate way to handle it.
Don't go to there right away.
Right. But it's okay to tell God, I don't know. I'm worried. I'm anxious. Lord, I need reassurance. I need comfort. I need something. And then see what God does.
Because again, it's not that this is, hey, dude, we're not looking to be
right.
Here's the hero, emulate them. It's no, we're seeing how real people in real time reacted, and we're seeing God's faithfulness. And so, okay, you know what? You do doubt, you do struggle. God is still faithful, and he doesn't come with anger and punishment then.
Because I'm getting irritated with Gideon at this point. It's like, buddy, how many times does God need to reassure you? Move. And I think there's an element where the next chapter is Gideon's consequence.
Okay.
For some of this lack of faith and trust, I think God's like, fine, you needed this much reassurance, but here's a consequence of it. And we'll see that more in the next chapter with how God handles Gideon's army and what he does with the numbers.
Well, so that's kind of a read ahead.
Yeah.
See because what we're trying to do is go look for the pattern, look for the structure.
Right.
Now read and figure it out for yourself. Because ideally, if you can find it for yourself, then you can teach it to others.
Yes.
Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to teach you so you can in turn teach it to others and go, here, let me help you put things back into place. Right. Because I don't know about you, but as Erica's been going through this, it definitely has been feeling like, oh, pieces are fitting together better. I know how to read this now, because it's always like, I didn't know what to do with. Is that good? Is that bad? I feel like if you're a judge, God's picking you, you should be amazing.
Yes.
I should be able to look up to you, and I struggle when you fall and you fail.
Right. I don't know what to do with it.
Right. So
as I was writing this chapter and I came to this ending, to be continued, do you remember, Veronica, those Saturday morning shows where they always, it was that
after these messages?
But after these messages, where like it was a cartoon that I remember Or at least that's where my memory's going. And that deep voice would come over, to be continued. And he kind of would recap the whole thing and then say, join us next time that's what I'm going to do real fast. So, to be continued. Will the Israelites continue to go hungry? Will the Midianites get a taste of their own medicine? Will Gideon actually choose to trust the Lord? Or will the Lord finally give up on Gideon and Israel in general? Tune in next time to have these questions answered. You don't remember that?
I do. Now as you're doing all that, that is kind of coming back to
He would
me.
ask all those questions and then you're like, I have to see the next one. So it's our hook, our
cliffhanger.
Our cliffhanger.
Yes. So we'll end it there with Erica's deep voice.
Deep.
And say, come back next week and we'll talk to you then.
Bye-bye.